YouTube. Wow. And my mic was on. My bad, people of YouTube. People of YouTube, apologies. We are here. We are talking Venezuela. That's about 12 minutes of missing audio. Apologies. But yeah, we can't move. This is where we are stuck. There's nothing we can do about that. So it makes sense to me, at least, that we attempt to seem at least neutral with the people that are there. And then we can still hold the position that we think Maduro is illegitimate and we support the US in tackling drug traffickers. But we kill them all violently. Those kind of lines, I think, were unnecessary. Something I was saying earlier on as this start. The reality of this situation, many people are saying they think it's all lies, that the US are attacking fishermen. I think that part is untrue. Will we get the benefits for the US if we stayed neutral? Yes, one. And two, I wasn't saying that we stayed neutral. I was saying that we don't talk wild. That's not staying neutral. I'm not saying we needed to stay neutral because staying neutral wasn't really possible. But we didn't need to say kill them all violently. Because if the US can bomb those boats, they can more than just as easily collaborate to intercept the boats and arrest them, right? But they don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. They don't want to have to process these men. They don't want to have to put these men in prison. They don't want to have to pay anything for it. They didn't want to do that. Now, people are saying they are fishing boats. I don't believe that for a moment. The alleged fisherman, I find it reprehensible for news stories to report on that story, calling the man a fisherman, and not report on the reality that he was arrested for the same allegation coming from the same place on a boat not a few years ago. Come on now, man. I find that to be reprehensible as a news station. Nathan, can TT Coast Guard kill US citizens on the high seas and get away with it? According to the context, yes. According to the context, yes. So yeah, one, don't hit me the fisherman story, please. Please. Two, I said early on, the test of this would be the drug market. Because if they are indeed hitting the drug trade, you are going to tell on the ground. And Newsday recently had a story telling exactly that. Ganja prices climb higher as US blows up drug boats. Almost 2 months after US President Donald Trump ordered the US Navy to the Southern Caribbean, the geopolitical tension in the region has become palpable. Over 300 US troops aboard the USS Gravely are expected to arrive in Trinidad. We know that. It is one of 8 warships that have formed a blockade around Venezuela and left its president, Nicolas Maduro, appealing for peace. Although Venezuela is not a major drug producer, the U.S. has maintained that its military operations are geared towards crippling the illegal drug trade coming from that country to the Caribbean and North America. According to a Newsday investigation, the effects are being felt locally, and many people are reminded in many ways in more ways than one, about the African proverb, when elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. Just 7 miles separate Titi from Venezuela, and the two neighbors have shared a rich history, with parang, music, food, and other aspects of culture becoming mainstays in Titi owing to the intermingling of its people. However, also being transported along those 7 miles of sea and other transshipment routes are illegal drugs, including marijuana, cocaine, and guns. According to multiple sources, since the U.S. operations in the Southern Caribbean began in late August, the price of marijuana has soared. Don't put Lily in that, Ronnie. Weren't they looking to stem fentanyl? Well, fentanyl was part of it, yes. I mean, if we think about it, if war was to war, USA would win because of this. Yes, we know that. Maduro spoke highly of former government of TNT. Yes. Maduro actually speaks highly of Trump too, 50-50. Just by the way, the allegation in this is that it's not necessarily Trump pushing this. Trump has a serious contingent from Florida, from Miami, and that contingent from Florida, being Latino, is related to Cuban exiles. Lots of Cuban exiles, including his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio himself. And lots of those Cuban exiles are fiercely anti-communist, anti-socialist within the Latin American sphere. So if you read what Maduro is communicating back to Washington, Maduro is trying to appeal to Trump. He's speaking to Trump on friendly terms. He hasn't insulted Trump yet. Read the communications between Maduro and Trump. You know who he is insulting? Rubio. He's attempting to make Trump feel, or to make it seem to Trump, that Rubio is leading him badly and in a bad way, and he and Venezuela could make a deal. So who knows? And this is why I was saying, as I said before, it doesn't make sense for us as a minor party in this whole thing to come and put our mouth big and strong. That doesn't make sense. Because what if Trump is known as the deal maker? Up till recently, he was talking about making deals with the Ayatollah in Iran, who some in the US may consider as their ultimate enemy. If Maduro, in his desperation, because if the allegations are correct, that what they were saying, 1/10 or something like that, a major proportion of Venezuelan income right now comes from the narco trade. Those were the allegations. If that is true, this will be squeezing money out of Maduro's pockets. He could be getting desperate. So, if he throws a wild deal out towards Trump, Maduro has already offered deals and they've been rejected. Yes. But this is the point I'm making. Trump is known as the deal maker. Do you think it's impossible for Maduro to give Trump a deal that he'll accept? I don't think that's necessarily so. So what if Maduro offers a deal that Trump wouldn't refuse? What position is Trinidad left in? After we cuss him up, listen. Donald Trump called Ted Cruz lying Ted. When he won and Ted Cruz came across to his side more now, he changed it from lying to lion Ted. the man is willing to change his mind. What position are we in? You see, that's why the statement is cockroach don't belong in foul party. I feel like Rowley did, but gosh, shake that off. But it's true. If you are a cockroach and you jump in the foul party, you know you have to kind of dance in the corner. You don't want to attract too much foul attention because they could always turn around and pick you. Dance in the corner quietly. Relax yourself. And this is the point I was making from the jump. If you ask me about who I would prefer as a Trinidadian in the United States, I would say I prefer Trump than the alternative. But if you ask me if I'm MAGA, I can't be MAGA because that first A, I am not. How can I be interested in making America great again? That's not my interest. That's not where my aim would be. So it makes no sense that a local Trinidadian would be MAGA. Our interest must be Trinidad. And I don't think violently insulting our neighbor is in our best interest. If the roach want to continue to feed off the main fowl, it better choose a side. I feel like you aren't listening what I've been saying all along. Up till now, I've never said not to choose a side. I've never said not to choose a side. I've said the kill them all violently part. That doesn't sound like a good idea. That doesn't sound like a good idea. And okay, even if you want to pick apart between Venezuela and the Maduro regime, okay, fine. Yeah. Insulting the Maduro regime. Either way, doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. I don't think that's a wise move on our part. Venezuela warns of attack from Trinidad and Tobago. Prime Minister Kamala Prasad-Visasa has turned Trinidad and Tobago into a U.S. aircraft carrier for a war throughout the Caribbean against Venezuela, against Colombia, and against all of South America. The accusation against Prasad-Visasa was made yesterday by the Venezuelan government. And they've been saying that should there be an attack from Trinidad and Tobago, a response is likely. We teach our kids to be brave. That's not being brave. We teach our kids to be brave, but we also teach them not to be foolish. That's not being brave. That's not what bravery is. That going and running your mouth as a prime minister, as a 70, what's her age? A septuagenarian grandmother of a prime minister, running your mouth on gangster war talk is not bravery. You are not going to fight any war. What bravery are you talking about? What? How that brave? Brave for who? Brave for how? What's brave in that? Like, what let me say where I might consider something more brave. It's more brave to me to stand against CARICOM. You see her statement that the zone of peace was never a zone of peace, and CARICOM can do what it wants to do, and we will do what is in our best interest. I'll consider that courageous. That's a courageous stand because you're standing against the vast majority of your compatriots in your regional bloc. That takes some courage. I'll call that courage. But it's not courageous to say kill them all violently. That's not a courageous thing to do. That's not some real brave thing. That doesn't take any real moral rectitude, to stand up and no. You just see wildness. A drunk man in the rum shop is just as brave as that. That's not, I don't consider that brave at all. But going against CARICOM, I consider that to be brave. And here's the thing. This is the balance I'm trying to make here. I consider her statements inappropriate, a lot of them inappropriate. I think she could have been much wiser, even in speaking about people as enemies. Even listen to Trump. Even Trump doesn't speak as wild as our prime minister when speaking about these people. Trump doesn't speak as wild as our prime minister. Even when talking about Kim and Putin and those guys, I just find the talk to be very unnecessarily wild. But I don't think it's wrong to go against CARICOM. I don't think that's necessarily wrong because, as I said, I think the job of the Trinidad government should be to seek Trinidad and Tobago's best interests. And that's kind of the problem with regional blocks and globalism as lots of Trinis love Motley. Lots of Trinis who love Motley, what they don't seem to get in her views of globalism. The problem with regional blocks, with global blocks and all of that, it's hard to put your country first when you're part of some of these things. And listen, it may be in our best interest if the US can stem the tide of narcotics in our country to allow them to do it and support them in it. You know what annoys me about these things? You know what annoys me about some of these things? I was having a discussion in the PNM safe seat of Twitter. And I was looking at some of the comments and views over there. And I brought up the example of El Salvador. And I said, Trinidad doesn't seem like we'll be able to get that. We have too much empathy for that. And some people are like, we don't want that. We could reduce crime in another way. And here's the reality. Here's the reality that, for example, El Salvador faced. El Salvador was at 6,000 murders in a year. They are now at 114, and I think 112 of them are solved. You hear that difference? 6,000 to 114, where 112 are solved. And people out there will see, what about the rights? But I think the general citizens would say, so what about the rights? Listen, there's a lot that people would put up with to go from 6,000 murders down to 114 murders. There's a lot that people will put up with. And there's a pragmatism that is growing in the world that is, as it were, counterbalancing the liberal order that, for example, the Motleys of the world are obsessed with a religious level. The pragmatism is this: if I see you on a boat with drugs, I intercept your communication and we know it's drugs and guns. I don't care for the court matter. I deal with you as I see fit. If I see you breaking into my home, you jump my wall without my permission, I should be able to make you into a strainer. That's the pragmatic view. Let's fix it. While some people with the liberal ordered view is that even if you jump my wall and present me a danger, I should attempt to escape and call the police so that the police can come and arrest you and that we can carry you into a court of law and give you due process. And at the end of that due process, if found guilty, then you can be punished by the state. That's the proper liberal order. And here's the thing. I think everybody would like that and go along with that if it worked. If it worked, everyone would have gone along with it. If we were living in a place with nearly zero crime, people would have gone along fully with that. But it seems kind of ridiculous to tell me that I should wait for the order, the due process, while my loved ones are dying. So El Salvador should have continued losing 6,000 human beings every year instead of locking up everybody who looked like a gangster. People supporting these tyrants. Which tyrants are you speaking of? Which tyrants are you speaking of? And here's the thing. As I saw our Homeland Security Minister say, it's legal in their view because they have considered the narco smugglers to be terrorists. And they have said they're at war with the terrorists and they're doing it in international waters. I don't know what makes these people tyrants, Master Mix promos. What would make Trump and Kamala tyrants, in your view? I would say Trinidad needs a good dictator. I don't think I'd say the same. But I think neither Kamala nor Trump can plausibly be said to be tyrants in the true form of that. You could not like their decisions, but that doesn't make them tyrants. The only time Law Association had a statement is when Andrea Barrett murder suspect died in custody. And you see, that's just the reality of it. And all this due process and law and the legal framework and all of that, this isn't something forced on us by the Almighty Himself that is unchangeable. This is something that the people decide. I think America above law. Listen, you know what I would like people to answer me? They say what America is doing illegal killings. Illegal by which law? And for any law to make any sense, there must be law enforcement. If there is no law enforcement, there is no law. Without law enforcement, laws are just mild suggestions. They're just mild suggestions. They aren't laws. Laws could only be laws if there is law enforcement. So if there is no law enforcement, what law are you talking about? Which law? An illegal killing, an illegal war. What are you talking about? Like, illegal on what merit? Did you know they give the boats a warning first when they don't stop, then they fire? I don't know that. I'm not sure about that. I don't even think that matters, to be honest. Law in land and law in sea are completely different. Or war crime. If you know, I don't like the term war crime. You know what a war crime is? A war crime is, I saw the clip you were talking about 50-50. A war crime is additional punishment put on the losers by the victors. If Mustache Man and his boys won back in 1945, the Allies would have been facing war crimes for the firebombing of Dresden, for the nukes they dropped. Lots of things the Allies did, they would have faced war crimes for. It's just a matter of who won. Breaking war rules. What war rules? The idea of war rules are ridiculous. Because war is my country, through violence, is attempting to force its view onto your country. If I'm resisting you and I'm fighting for my life, what rules are we referring to here? Candace, Malcolm Lewis, let's not speak nonsense. Of course, any kind of war breaks out in Venezuela is going to affect us. Regardless of what position we take in the war, it is going to affect us. Regardless. Whatever position we take, if a kinetic war breaks out in Venezuela, it's going to have serious impact on Trinidad. We are 7 miles apart. We are right there. Very close. And not even just the violence. For example, I was reading this story about the Venezuelan natives, the indigenous of Venezuela that are finding their way over here now. Calls mount for help to come in for indigenous Venezuelan children in Trinidad. Warao children in Trinidad's southwestern peninsula living in squalor, running barefoot along the beach, their tiny feet covered in blisters and sores. None are enrolled in school, and the older ones over the age of 10 help their parents with work in the small fishing huts near the coast. Others play in the abandoned coconut estates on the coast. When Guardian media visited the carcass, some of the children were playing in the sand, others were seen playing on the floating door of an old fridge in the waters of the beach. A fisherman who spoke to the Guardian media on the condition of anonymity described the Warao as simple people who even in Venezuela never had access to formal education. The Warao people are primarily Venezuelan indigenous are a primarily Venezuelan indigenous group. They are not like the Spanish, the wealthier ones, he said. They are the river folks. They come here in small boats, and some of them used to go back before all this patrol started, he said. So, not just the violence in and of itself, but the people. There are many indigenous people in Venezuela. Many of them aren't going to hang around if a war is going on. They are going to disappear from that place. And where would they go? Well, the same place that people from South America fled to for the last, 4,000 years they've been fleeing to here? It's been a long time of fleeing to Trinidad. It's a tradition among the indigenous people of South America. Only supposed to engage opposing military, not civilian, upon capture, not torture, etc. Rules of engagement, they exist. I am not saying they don't exist, I'm saying they're rubbish. They make no sense. For example, the distinguishing between a military and a civilian. What's that distinguishing factor? What is it? So if I decide that none of my military will wear uniforms, then you can't fight me. You are just supposed to stand and watch me shoot you. What if the civilians are providing the resources to keep killing your men? Are you supposed to just leave them be? You know, it's foolish. We're talking about death. We're talking about killing people. And you're trying to say that there should be rules on how I take my death. You're coming to kill me and my family and everyone that I know. And I should limit my defense by the rules set by who? Whose rules? Yes, we should be here tomorrow. We're looking to really get back in the mode here. Hopefully some of these days have been a little less busy now. Hopefully we get over some of that. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of fallout if there's war over there. All those indigenous people, where are they going to go? So where's Venezuela getting their information from? Because they insist this Kamala who bring America porn says. No, you know, you have to understand. Venezuela is a socialist country. Socialists believe very strongly in propaganda. A lot of what Venezuela is seeing, they're doing propaganda. They're aiming for propaganda. So you look at some of the statements made by some of the Venezuelan leaders, and you see that they are speaking to Trinidadians. You recognize they are talking for Trinidadians. That Kamala and her drunk self is dragging innocent Trinidadians into a war that they don't want to be in. What they're doing there is attempting to drive a wedge between the citizenry and the leadership. And they are aware that there already is some disagreement there. Listen, you think Venezuelans can't see the internet? Of course, they're seeing, and they're speaking with those things in mind. So it would work good for their motives to see that it was Kamala bring the Americans, and that the US is aiming to use Trinidad as a shooting point, as a attack point. I don't think that's necessary. I thought it was coming from PNM. What was coming from PNM? That's not necessarily true. It could be that Venezuela has no information that the US plans to do an attack from Trinidad. The information could be that the US plans to do an attack from the Colombian waters. That could be the information that the Venezuelans are getting. But it would be in their best interest to, through words, cut off the possibility of an attack from Trinidad and Tobago too. The current narrative is Trinidad is working with the CIA. Yes, and the current narrative is also that there's going to be a false flag, and the current narrative is also that there's going to be an attack from Trinidad waters. They are throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. Everything at the wall. So if perchance something happens to an American vessel or a Trinidadian vessel right now, then there will be a lot of people that say that could never be Venezuela. That's a false flag. But our media appears to be in the propaganda too. That's the internal problem. Well, you see, that's the usefulness of propaganda in the first place. The nature of what propaganda is generally it makes something newsworthy. You're also delusional about what? So what? Wait. What you think? You're going to stand up against Trump? Go protest outside the US Embassy. That's not delusion. Yeah. The beautiful thing with propaganda is it's newsworthy. It's something that makes the news. So you put it out there in order for the media to pick it up. And I can't blame the media for reporting on the back and forth. And that's part of the reason that I said our prime minister's words are unwise in this situation. Because they only fuel that level of propaganda and back and forth. What are the rules for local media? They seem to be pushing Venezuelan propaganda not in our favor. Well, there are no rules for local media. That's a free press. You don't have rules like that. It's not like you implement rules where they must take Trinidad's side. No. And Al Jazeera, I say I know that. And I don't know that I'll say they're publishing Venezuelan propaganda. They're publishing what different people are saying. They're publishing the news around the story. If it annoys you, it might be that you don't like the news around the story. But that's what they're publishing. Here's some critique I would have in this publishing. So the Venezuelan vice president recently spoke about rescinding all gas deals with Trinidad and Tobago. I am aware that we had 2 licenses, the Coconia field, however you pronounce that, and then this dragon gas business here. How many out of any deals between Trinidad and Venezuela are actually producing resources currently? Like, none of these stories actually said this. What is actually on the table here when Venezuela says cancel everything? Are they saying cancel everything for something that we haven't gotten yet? Or are there currently steady streams of resources that are going to be cut by these statements? Manufactured consent is a thing. Won't local media get contracts if they favor US and TT in the war? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. The nature of a free press kind of market is a lot of how you make a lot of hay is by speaking against certain narratives. You hold on to a narrative, and being anti-Trump currently isn't a position that is unpopular. So yeah, they have reason. You see, it is very easy to see what we did was wrong with respect to supporting USA. What was choice number 2? I never said supporting the USA was wrong. That's not what I said. I said how words were unwise. Diplomacy is a thing. There's a skill in diplomacy for a reason. A skillful diplomat should be able to tell you that they are going to put you to the gallows without you flipping out about it. Pone says it is an expense for America to bring war equipment, not seeing they're going back empty-handed. Oh, okay. It's not about being anti-Trump. Look at the Pentagon forcing news agencies to sign declaration. What was the declaration that the Pentagon forced those news agencies to sign? Do you know? And I am speaking about, someone was asking, why would it be in media's best interest to speak against what the US and our government are doing here? And it could be in their best interest in terms of monetarily, because, as I said, anti-Trump isn't an unpopular position to have. So speaking against the US's action in Venezuela isn't something that is going to make you unpopular on the global media stage. UNC and the US Communication Office need to offer local media something to control the narrative. I'm not sure how they would do that. I'm not sure how they would do that. To control the local narrative, you need a US spokesperson to be speaking. To have a US spokesperson speaking from Trinidad giving updates is going to cement the view that Trinidad is the forward base for the US mission in Venezuela. To have a Trini in Trinidad giving constant updates on this is again going to seemingly cement the view that Trinidad is working with the United States directly in these assaults. That they would only publish stories that the Pentagon approved, interviews, or whistleblowers. Wrong. That was not what they made them sign. They made them sign an agreement that they would not seek leaks out of Pentagon staff. They would not actively seek leaks, which technically already is illegal. Do you think it's about oil? Not directly. No. I think it's about the general global economy. Yes. It have things going on behind the scenes that we, the public, not aware of. Well, that has always been the case. Always been the case. There has never been a time on this beautiful blue earth where the general public was aware of all actions going on. That has always been the case. Always. We may never know. Why you been hiding from I wasn't hiding from you specifically, Theon. I wasn't hiding from you specifically. I was just very busy, extremely busy. Thank you, Majis. Thank you. Much appreciated. Like when I read this about the Warao here, where we were speaking about the Venezuelan indigenous people that are currently starting to settle on the coast in Trinidad. And someone was saying, they deserve education and they deserve resources and all of that and all of that. What are your positions on this? If a group is indigenous and tribal, they live barefooted and subsistent, they don't do formal education, is it the job of the general wider public to impose the education system and modern living standards and styles on them? And if it's not the job of the general society to do that, where's the limit of that? How free should we allow indigenous people to be? That's a question, isn't it? Conquest is part of humanity. Assimilate or get ignored. Yeesh. You're a Mongol or what? I have a friend who is Veni Warao in Trini. We were on Milner together. Seemed like a normal guy. Well, obviously, I'm not talking just about the ethnic people. I was reading a story here from The Guardian where Warao tribal people are building huts on our southwestern coast. And they are living in squalor with their children barefoot, uneducated, etc. and living subsistent down there. And people are saying they need help. They need to educate the children. They need to be clothed. They need better conditions. They should be free to live as they choose, Poon says. How free is that, Poon? Leave them people alone. Well, they also said that some of the children are pregnant. Do we still leave those people alone? What if their age of consent is like very old-timeish? Like really old-timeish? Do we still leave those people alone? Ria, the Warao, there are not the Warao people, like all the Warao people are there. Hi, Manzi. That doesn't concern us, Boo says. Yes, Tian says leave them alone. There are Warao people indigenous to Venezuela that are currently making home on our southwestern shores. In little fishing huts, their children are there barefooted, uneducated, etc. What do you think should be done? There are people saying we need to educate them. They need resources. They need to be outfitted with modern conveniences. What do you see? What betterment this modern will offer, Poon says. Majid says up to the times. Shazam says it do be easy. I'm kinda in your position, Shazam. It don't be easy. It don't be easy kind of thing. Kind of person. Because I think there is a limit. Is Venezuela unsafe for them? I presume that's why they left. Why is the coat of arms up? I don't know which coat of arms is that. Oh, that's just how it was stacked. Yeah, I'm generally of the view you leave people be. You leave people be. But I think even the leave them be, there's a limitation. If things aren't right, well, fix it, because they are on our soil. Munzi59 says, I think that one for sure can't happen. You can't just fix it. You're going to create horror stories to just fix it. You're going to create horror stories. How do you just fix it? If you exist within our land, you abide by our laws. Simple. Whew. Identify an area for them to settle and do the humanitarian thing to assist them. If everyone comes here with a sub-story, are we just to take care of everybody? No, we are not. I am pretty seriously anti-immigration. I will actually be way more pro-immigration for indigenous people though. Like indigenous people who come and build a hut on the shores and do some spearfishing and then jump back on their canoe and go somewhere else. Like, brother, you do your thing, you don't bother anybody. But if you're looking just to hops up people and that is what the British, French, and others think about us, that we're uncivilized. Poon. Yes, Poon, that's actually to some extent very correct. So the view that you are putting, not you necessarily, but that some people in the chat are putting forward there, was the view that pushed colonization forward. And many people still hold the view that British colonization improved and advanced many of the places that it colonized. Put them on Shaka Shakari, make it the new North Center. That's no problem. If we have to provide for them, they need to contribute to our development. Why are we always supporting others with nothing in return? You're singing like Trump. Ria, you're singing like Trump. You're singing like... I always see so many Trinis, because many Trinis are into, by and large, pop culture and black pop culture. So many Trinis are naturally on the democratic, more left side of American politics, at least in vocal support. But I always say the positions of most Trinis are more conservative and right-wing generally than even Trump himself. They contribute culturally. You have any idea how special and unique it is that they chose to be here? I mean, sure, but there's a limit to that, eh? There's a limit to that. Give me 5 minutes, let me explain. You don't need to explain because I'm in agreement with that. I'm just saying that many Trinis are like that. Many Trinis are like that, and I think that's a very justifiable position to have. I find it ridiculous that people are negatively judged for wanting control of who enters their nation. Like, what? How is that a negative thing? Since when? Since how? But even if it's a special thing, one village might be special, but was it 300,000 or so of them? I believe I read there's quite a few, you know. So I don't think you want to take all. I think that view is presenting itself because of the general bad taste immigration has had on TNT, and not only TNT, you know, Trinisan. The truth is, if you have open immigration, it's going to leave a bad taste wherever you have that open immigration. Open immigration doesn't do well for the place that everyone is coming to, by and large. By and large, it doesn't. Well, can we just walk in Canada and live? I mean, I guess if you could walk in, generally, you might get trained. Like, if somehow you could walk over from the US into Canada, it's unlikely that they're going to chase you down and deport you anytime very soon. So, I mean, I guess technically you can. And Canada is so big and open. I feel like if you go and live a subsistence life with you and your family somewhere in remote Saskatchewan or something, who is going to be bothered by that? That's you and the mountain lions or whoever to catch. Nobody is going to be bothered by that. So, I mean, yeah, I'm not saying you wouldn't know that you're cross, but what's going to happen? Then what? All right, let's had some other stories I found to be quite interesting here. The Motley speech. Motley, U.S. military threatening regional peace. And Motley says that the place to resolve this is at the United Nations. And I've said this so many times. I am not the biggest Motley fan, as some people are, because I reject outright the globalist pull and the globalist call. And Miss Motley is an avowed globalist. Pretty much every major speech she gives is a call for more globalism and for centralizing that global power. I disagree. I don't want that. And they're about to get everybody. Sir, you all do your thing. And you have your whole government name up there, sir. So careful what you see. But she says the way this was supposed to be resolved is carry it to the United Nations and have a discussion there. That all wars ultimately were ended through dialogue. So instead of start this war and go through the war and then wait till the end to have dialogue to end it, have the dialogue up front to avoid the war. This is a random, unrelated. You do like Maya over Camps? Whoo, whoo, whoo. That's a hard question. Mia is much more diplomatic than Camps. I consider Mia to be a better diplomat and a better speaker than Camps. As for policy direction, I think I'd prefer Camps' policy direction. I don't know how Barbados is run, so I can't speak for leadership itself. To say, because I consider Camps one of her main weaknesses to be poor leadership. It's either very poor leadership or she's a crooked leader. One out of the two. Because under her leadership, lots of crookery happens. She generally leads a band of crooks, oftentimes. And, well, it's either poor leadership or you yourself can be implicated. I don't know that position as it pertains to Ms. Motley. Tell Motley to write a letter to Maduro telling him surrender and avoid all the war then. Exactly. It's a foolish thing. So what? The United States was supposed to bring Maduro up to the United Nations and tell the United Nations General Assembly like that, listen, this man we think is sending drugs across the seas into our country, we'd like it to stop. And what is the United Nations going to do? Say, please stop? And if Maduro says, yes, we'll stop. Well, we aren't doing it anyway. But anything that we could do, we'll make sure we do it. And then the drug shipments double in the next month. What then? You return to the United Nations and appeal again. And then you return to the United Nations and appeal again. And then return to the United Nations and appeal again. I mean, how many times the Palestinians asked the United Nations about Israel? What happened? That only stopped when the United States decided that they were going to put their foot down. So, United Nations for what? My CARICOM friends, by and large, now have a very negative view of TT. It's concerning. I know they do. I know they do. But to some extent, it was on their lips all along. They even referenced the referendum and how Trinidad seeks its own interest. I don't care. I want Trinidad to seek its own interests. And personally, I think much of the Caribbean does the same. And it's a treachery to attempt to make it seem that by us seeking our own interests, it's against them, while they do the same. If your position is one where your interest is best served by a very strong unified CARICOM, then you're going to want that. If your interest is best served by not that, then you're not going to want that. The Virgin Islands, for example, and Bahamas, they don't want that free movement that CARICOM says they want. Why? They don't want Haitians in their country like that. I am looking at Grenada very keenly. The US made a direct request of Venezuela. Currently, Grenada, my bad, Grenada. The United States made a request of Grenada. Currently, I don't think they have answered the request outright yet, but let's see how that goes. How many people are willing to make a stand beside words? A stand like, we ban US vessels from entering our waters. Who's going to do it? And then what do you do if they do enter it? Listen, CARICOM, we should be in CARICOM and we should go along with CARICOM as long as it benefits us. If it doesn't benefit us, then bye-bye. And that sounds selfish, but the reality is that's it for all of those countries. All of those countries function like that too. All of those countries make decisions to keep certain parts out of CARICOM, to do certain things differently than CARICOM when it benefits them. Daily Ink says might is right. To some extent it is. To some extent, at least on this earth. So, it'll be interesting to see where it all goes. It would be interesting. It will be interesting. US, Russia, Iran, China. Sooner or later, choices must be made. That's kind of just the reality, you know, Tian. And I appreciate that, even though I think you are generally one that may be on the less support of the current US regime, it's something that is understandable. Small fish, big fish, and small pun, big pun has been a reality of human existence since time immemorial. The people that were living around the ancient Sumerians and in the Fertile Crescent, they just had to take it. The smaller tribes assimilated into Greater Egypt. Not all of them would have wanted it. These Egyptians and the weird kind of eyeliner business and thing, who like all of that weirdness. And what it is with them and building these big triangle thing all over the place. But what you gonna do? That's the big fish. You work around the big fish if you want to survive. And I mean, you could just rise up and attempt to take them all out. But you may join many such rebels whose legacies have been erased by history. And who are ancestors to nobody because they were all wiped out totally. All we know is the US, how many of us been to China? And you know, that's kind of my issue with a lot of the talk that I see. Many people talk about things like they hate the side that they're on. Like, if you really do hate that side, then you should be actively trying to leave that side. What do you think of a US TNT colonizing Venezuela? Woo! Someday we'd go through a whole discussion on colonization. The whole idea and morality of colonization, what we think about it. Because is colonization inherently wrong? Why? Anyway, people, that's all I have for now, eh? That's all I have for now. If you're educated, yeah, that visa. Oh, Tian, I see. That's how you tempered. Men watching the visa. Cause you know they done rejecting people, eh? They are already rejecting people. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. This was the Mindful Live. I am Nathan Springer. Be mindful, not mindless. Many want to do that to us, yes. And many of the, if you listen, many of these speeches that they're giving kind of undertones like Trinidad was Venezuela's own, and like we kind of wanted, like, back up on that talk. Yeah, I'm out. See you all tomorrow. Hopefully, we're looking to be here tomorrow. The days, hopefully, are a little less busy. Until then, people, hold it on. Stay good, stay well, stay inside, outside, still sketchy. Peace. I'm out.